Yes, of course, Eddie the Eagle Edwards. Now, he's more commonly known as Eddie the Eagle and competed in both the 70-metre and the 90-metre events. He's finished last in both of them, but at least he took part, for goodness sake. I wouldn't dare. But he won people over with his can-do spirit and determination to never give up. Qualification rules for the next Games were tightened, so Eddie, unfortunately, could not return for the 1992 French Games. But ever since then, he's used the fame he gained to raise thousands of pounds for good causes with jumping and all sorts of things. I'm going to say that Eddie the Eagle Edwards joins me now. Eddie! Eddie!
Oh,
I remember you.
You look far too young to remember 34 years ago.
No, I do actually remember that. How old are you can say?
No, I don't.
You don't say either.
No.
I noticed you've hurt your finger. What happened there?
I put a saw through it last year.
Oh, for goodness.
The fingernail's falling off. Yeah, last year. I keep putting plasters on it.
Are you an accident-prone type person?
No. I said that I walked in a cupboard the other night, so I've got a bit of a black eye from that. But no, I'm not usually accident-prone.
Not usually. So, Eddie, I'm going to ask you, what on earth possessed you to want to do that particular discipline? Because it doesn't look easy.
No, it was an economic decision, really. I was in America racing, and to ski race was costing me $250 a day. But to go ski jumping, it was costing me $5 a day. So it was a no-brainer. I could afford to ski jump, but I couldn't afford to carry on ski racing. So I started ski jumping, and it was only after I started that I then realised that we've never had a jumper before. And then I managed to qualify. I asked what the qualification was to go to Calgary. I managed to reach that, and went to Calgary Olympics and became Eddie the Eagle.
No, what were you best at, though? Were you best at the ski racing or the jumping?
Oh, yeah, I was best at ski racing at that time. Yeah. And when I went to Calgary in 1988, I was still very much a beginner. I'd only been jumping for 20 months. Yeah. And everybody else, though, had been jumping for 20 years. So there was no way that I was going to beat anybody. But for me, just getting to those Olympic Games was my gold medal. And I loved being there, and people loved me for what I represented. You know, I was exemplifying that Olympic ideal, that Olympic spirit, and people loved me for it, and it was lovely.
I mean, you must have had a few accidents doing that. I mean, you don't just do that once and then, I'm fine, I'll just get up and do it again. I mean, give me a rundown of your worst one.
My worst accidents were ski jumping. I fractured my skull twice.
Oh, my goodness.
Broke my jaw, smashed my collarbone in 5 places, broke 3 ribs, damaged my kidney, damaged my knee. But my worst accident was a broken neck and back when I was about 18. I was ski racing in Italy, and I collided with a guy, and I hit a tree and broke my neck and back. But lucky enough, I didn't damage my spinal cord, and I survived and lived to fight another day.
I always find it interesting when people say they broke their back but they didn't damage their spinal cord. How does that work?
Yes, I fractured 4 vertebrae, 2 in my neck and 2 in my back, and I was very lucky. They had to cut the cat suit off me, which I just bought. It cost me £200, and they had to cut it out.
That's the least of your worries.
Yeah, and I was put in traction, and it took me about 5 months to recover fully.
Really?
But I was back skiing after about a month, but I had a neck brace, and I was sort of very gingerly skiing on the nursery slopes and the blue runs, and then I finally got back to full fitness and carried on. But it never put me off.
No.
You know, I just learnt from my mistakes, and even now, because I collided with somebody, I'm very conscious when I'm skiing of people around me. So, and I do get nervous, and the faster I go, the more space I want, and I try and look for spaces so that I try not to go too close to other skiers when I'm skiing down a mountain.
I find it interesting when people say, I'm going skiing and on a holiday. I'm like, you're going on a holiday where you could sort of kill yourself? And I don't think so. That's not a holiday. For me, I'm going to lie there, I'm going to do nothing, I'm going to play chess in the sand, maybe swim a little bit in a pool where I can touch my feet on the bottom, that sort of thing.
No, for me, I love a ski trip, you know, go out, the mountains, the fresh air, the exercise, the après-ski, the saunas, I love it all.
Now, there's been a film about you, hasn't there? Talk to me about that.
Yes, it was released in 2016, but I signed the deal to make the movie 23 years ago. And I was very excited back then. Originally, I think Robbie Williams was going to play me in the original film.
Really? But, that's a bit of. I mean, not that you're very handsome, Eddie, but that's like Naomi Campbell playing me, isn't it? Who's going to play Nana Akua? Naomi Campbell. Oh, that's all right. Yeah,
I can see the resemblance.
Well, we're both black. Yeah, that's about it, really.
They had loads of people, and the project just kept stalling. And then I won a TV show called Splash about 6 or 7 years ago. And from that, they then made the film, and I was very impressed. Taron, I couldn't believe how much Taron Egerton looked and sounded and acted just like I was 34 years ago. And they did a wonderful job. I've seen the film like 130 times.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. It still makes me cry when I watch it.
Oh, really? What, is that a good tears?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They did a great job. They really captured the heart and spirit and essence of my story. It was really well done. There's just the right amount of humour and drama, and they really captured my story very, very well.
What would you say is the most poignant sort of moment then in your life that has been captured in this film? Some people won't have seen the film.
Well, obviously going to the Olympic Games, and they really captured it in such a nice way, because for me, getting to those Olympic Games, I knew that I was going to come last. I came 58th, but that didn't matter. They really showed the fact that for me, getting there was my gold medal, and despite all the hardships, in fact, my life was much harder than even the film portrayed.
Right.
You know, I slept in the back of my car, I scraped food out of bins, I slept in a psychiatric hospital in Finland, all these sort of things which they didn't put in the film. So there was so much more that they could have put in, but what they did use, they did really well anyway. But yeah, I love the film. Really.
Wow.
And I'm very busy off the back of the film. I'm talking about my life all over the world at conferences, and I talk about resilience and tenacity and never giving up. And I talk to kids and at conferences and all that kind of thing. So off the back of the film, it's been fantastic.
Well, off the back of your efforts as well and your hard work.
Well, that's true.
And sheer determination and bravery for doing that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking then as you're doing the ski jump, as you're coming off the end there? What's going through your head?
Well, it used to be, I was really scared of the height, the speed. I was wondering where the nearest hospital was. I was wondering how many bones I was going to break. You know, the nurse is nice. But then as I got better and better at ski jumping and became a little bit safer, it was just technique. I listened to what my coach was telling me, and I knew that if I did that to the letter, I knew that I would be safe. So all I was thinking about when I was coming down the jump was my balance, my position, making sure that I can go forwards at the takeoff, because if I could go forwards, I was safe. And just working on certain things to make me safe. First and foremost, I wanted to be safe. Then I wanted to jump further than I've ever jumped before. Yeah. So I was always constantly pushing the boundaries, but I still wanted to be safe as well.
It's interesting because as a gymnast, so I used to do backflips and somersaults. I still do them every now and again. I never really thought about the danger until I got a little bit older. As your time progressed doing this jumping, did you start to get the fear? No. Do you have the fear?
Well, I always had fear. Always had fear. From the very first jump to the very last jump, I was always fearful. But I used that fearfulness in a positive way. It made me focus. It made me concentrate, because I didn't want to hurt myself. I certainly didn't want to kill myself. So I just used it in a positive way by focusing really hard on what I needed to do to make sure I was safe. And I relied on that. And yes, occasionally I made a mistake and hurt myself, but that didn't put me off. I made sure I never made the same mistake again. And I carried on. And that was the most important thing. Just get up. No matter how many times you hurt yourself and you get hit, you've got to get up and you've got to keep going.
And I'm presuming the most dangerous part of that jump is the landing, is it?
Well, it helps if you land the right way out, land on your feet rather than your head. And you've got to land on your skis as well. And sometimes the landing hill was very icy, so as soon as your skis land, they would sometimes, move around all the time. But yeah, you've got to time the landing just right, because if you come out of your position too early, your ski can actually flip you over, and you could land on your back. So you've got to time it just right. And sometimes they leave it too late, and then they fall flat on their face. So you just get used to the fact that when you're about 2 foot off the ground, then start lifting your head, your body will follow, and then hopefully, boom, you land on your feet.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when people go skiing, and I have been snowboarding only once, you forget that you're actually at a height, and it's height, and you're coming down the mountain. If that was a mountain exposed, you wouldn't climb it. You wouldn't jump off it either.
And some people are scared just going up the lift, let alone skiing down.
I have a fear of heights, but I was able to climb a mountain and go skiing or snowboarding or whatever it was. It's just interesting.
Fantastic.
So since all of that, because you sort of disappeared, the rules changed so you couldn't compete.
Yep.
Then, of course, you've had to film out and things like that. What else have you been doing?
Well, after Calgary, because I became Eddie the Eagle and they wouldn't let me carry on ski jumping, I just threw myself into the media side, the celebrity side. I was travelling all over the world, opening shopping centres, golf courses, fun rides, having a whale of a time, doing loads of TV shows and radio shows, earning lots of money. I went from a plasterer, earning about £7,000 a year, and then a week later, I was earning £20,000 an hour to open a fun ride or open a hotel. And I thought, wow, loads of money. And I was putting the money away into a trust. My trustees allegedly looked after it quite badly, and I went into voluntary bankruptcy. But that sowed the seed then to become a lawyer. And when I retired from ski jumping, I went back to school and studied and did a law degree. Loved doing law.
Yes.
Loved studying. Unfortunately, at that time, to do my legal practice course to become a lawyer was like £20,000. No guarantee of a job at the end of it. So I went back to plastering.
Plastering's pretty well paid, to be fair.
Well, it is now. It is very well now.
Good job.
And, but my plastering was always my plan B, and I always had that to fall back on. So it gave me the confidence to go off and do all these things, knowing that if they failed, I always had my plastering to fall back on. And it was really nice to have that blanket, that comfort that I've got something I can always do work, I can always pay the bills. And
do you still do plastering?
I still plaster now. Some of my friends are builders and kitchen fitters, so they sometimes give me a ring and say, could you come and do some work for us? So I get my trowel out and off I go. So yeah, I still do a bit of plastering.
I was going to say, plaster's a good one. It's pretty difficult to get hold of, to be fair. Very good skill.
And it's a good skill to have, very good skill. It keeps me grounded, it keeps me fit, and I like to help my mates out every once. So friends and family, I'll still do my plastering for. So
that's good. I've got some stuff you can plaster probably with you.
I'll come round and have a look.
Exactly, for sure. And, but finally, I just want to talk about the Paralympics and also the Beijing Olympics. What's your view on that? Because of all these things going on in the world and everything, you know, some of the athletes, Russian athletes, have been not allowed to compete and things. Where do you stand with that?
Well, it's hard. I mean, I thought Beijing had a wonderful Olympics. They would always host a great Olympics. But they had lots of issues there with the COVID, you know, people weren't allowed. So, yeah, I felt sorry for the athletes because they were competing in empty stadiums. And that was such a, you know, when I went to Calgary jumping, there was 82,000 people in the stadium and they were shouting and cheering and it was a wonderful atmosphere. You know, jumping in Beijing, it was just, you know, you could hear people and people, you know, there was nobody there. It must have been really strange. I did agree with countries where they didn't send their officials because they wanted to sort of demonstrate their annoyance at, you know, human rights things with China, which was fair enough. But I think the athletes should still be allowed to go and compete and try wherever possible to try and keep politics out of sport. I know it's really, really hard and sport is political. I think the Russian figure skater, you know, just dominated all the news at Beijing, unfortunately, and rightly so. But I thought the authorities made some terrible decisions allowing her to compete, even though she was found guilty of drugs. I know she was 15, but
still, the rules are the rules.
That's right. And they almost sanctioned cheating, and I think that was wrong.
If you're 15. Yeah,
15. I can see. Well, it was all, you know. It was her team around her that were doing all the string pulling. But at the same time, they should have made an example and said, no, rules are rules. That's it. You're out.
Well, listen, Eddie, we're running out of time. So if people want to find out more, are you up to something that people can check you out on, or is it just mainly your films out there and just?
Yeah, well, I'm still busy travelling all over the world doing talks. I've got a talk coming up in Chichester next week, which is a sort of an event where people can buy tickets to come along and listen to me. So I do events all over the world now, and I'm still keeping busy. The odd TV thing every once in a while, but enjoying life, I would say. Enjoying very much.